Welcome back to Central Coast Disc Golf. This is round 2 from the 2023 Discrafts Cascade Challenge up in Shelton, Washington. Beautiful part of the country here. I'm your host, Nate Perkins, joined here with my good friend Connor O'Reilly, who shot himself an 8 under par during the opening round. Connor, what are your thoughts on the Shelton Springs Disc Golf Course?
I, as well as a lot of the players, I think are having a lot of fun throwing some more finesse shots, busting out the slower discs that we don't get to touch often on the tour other than on approach shots, and just hitting gaps and having to make some putts out in the woods. The wind did show up today, though, and it really has an effect here at Shelton Springs. Nate, walk us through hole 1.
Yeah, it's only 270 feet, but it kind of sets the tone for the gap hitting that is required out here at Shelton. Gap is only 6 feet across off the tee, and it's a bit more of a high level shot than you would think at first glance. You really want to throw something straight 250 that slows down, stalls out, and then starts to fade. I feel like if you throw that pure hyzer
on your lead card from Blacksburg, Virginia, James Conrad.
James, of course, shooting a blistering 1096 rated course record, 14 under par. And yeah, to finish my thought, if you pure hyzer on this hole, you're likely going to test those guardian trees that are like 50.
Yeah, the hyzer play is more of a luck shot. I feel like pushing it straight and having just a touch of fade is the pure line here. James looking fresh in the new kicks and the minty shirt. He was kind of trying to decide what new putter to go with. I told him go with the mint yesterday, and it apparently worked out pretty well for him.
Missouri, Nico Locastro.
Yeah, James actually lost his go-to overstable in V during the opening round at OTB Open, so he's put that fresh one in the bag.
Nico quite a bit inside here, but gets very fortunate to find himself in circle 1. Could easily been 80, 90 feet back there.
Park, California, James Proctor.
James has had a great start to his season so far. Been playing extremely consistent. Well known for clean backhands and a great putt. 2 things you really need to score out here.
Yeah, he's having a career season, Connor. He quit his job midway through last year, so this is actually his first year. Sorry, Gavin. This is James's first year committing to full-time disc golf tour. And Gavin bringing some magic to the course yesterday, shooting a 10 under par with an ace on the 4th.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that in the coverage yesterday. Skipped in his FD3 on that forehand line.
James wants nothing to do with that elevated bucket.
Yeah, and he probably had that tree right in his way as well, that one. Right there in the bullseye.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, Gavin putting back into the headwind there, and that kind of just lifted up and over the band.
Yeah, not the putt you want to start your round with here on the lead card, but let's see how he recovers. And like we said, really, unless you were here Monday for some practice, you didn't get to see this level of wind out here. So these players have been playing in those calm, wooded conditions for the better part of the last 4 or 5 days. Takes a little adjusting sometimes when the wind's whipping like this.
James with the lone birdie here on the first. He's going to extend his lead to 4 strokes. Unfortunate 3-putt bogey there for Babcock.
Yeah, hole 1 was playing as the 5th easiest, so definitely a hole at the minimum. You want to have some kind of a putt here and set the tone hitting that first gap. Hole 2, the gap might be slightly bigger than hole 1, but you got to hit it a little further away from the tee, so it feels almost tighter in a way. The wind is whipping off the right shoulder here, really going to give you some big flare skips as you come out. The key on this one is to set a lot of hyzer angle and choose whether you want to get to the ground early or kind of play a nose up shot that lands more circle's edge and skips over. Either way, you want to have some kind of putt around circle's edge or better out there in the whipping wind. Ooh, that looked high and inside for James.
Yeah, totally left his hand early. He's kind of going for that high stall shot with the stable NV.
Nico playing a flat line on this one. Just going to be really hard to bring it back, but he does so very well with that spin control.
Yeah, that's kind of on the headwind left to right side of the pin.
Proctor plays it nice and tight to the gap. Expect a nice skip on this one. Kind of dead ground play, but not too bad. 20 feet. Ooh. Wide miss for Babcock, but he gets extremely fortunate.
That's a wild reaction right there.
Course like this, you're going to see some shots that are
No way.
really poor that end up in some decent spots, and you're going to see some shots that are almost there that end up in some really bad spots. Conrad
Hits that tree right in front of him. Looked like he did have just the tiniest window. He was trying to feed that shot through.
strong circle 2 putt out of Gavin. He told me recently he's been working on extending his regular putt range out into that 45 and beyond range. He says, "Hi, Mom." And looking good right there. Last season, he probably would have went to a stepper in that situation. And as you said, Nico facing a tough wind situation. A wind that's really going to slam the disc unless you commit to a lot of speed.
And James threw it Ursus. Is that Thought Space, Connor?
I can't remember. I know Eric Oakley's also playing that disc. It's something like a Justice type of disc, really overstable, mid-range. I can't remember the company. I don't think it's Thought Space. I think it's a different company. I want to say a name, but I feel like I'm just
I feel like it's got to be
spitballing
Infinite,
in the
then.
dark. Hole 3, we have a bomber par 4, and Nate's going to tell us how to play it.
Well, it's one of the harder holes on the course, 864 feet. It's really the hole that you can open up here, and the wind was really starting to pick up here late in the afternoon. 14 miles per hour out of the southwest, showing itself as a tailwind left to right here on the third. There is a little bit of OB over there in the wood line on the left. Ideal tee shot lands right about here in the matted down grass. And then this tunnel starts to close in pretty tight. This basket is tucked back here. We're actually playing to short basket. The long one is FPO pin.
We did some quick research, and the Ursus comes from terminal velocity discs. So put them on your disc golf production map. The game's really booming nowadays, and it's not uncommon to have a company with a new disc that you have never heard of.
And Gavin's disc, as well as James, just kind of getting slammed there in that tailwind. It's kind of a fine line, huh?
It really is. I feel like whether or not you want to try to hit that big air shot, you kind of, the tailwind can make you want to do too much, but then all of a sudden you play just a flat line and it'll kind of get killed. So it can be, while it can be a helping wind, it can be pretty touchy.
James hammering on this photon. You can see the tailwind just kind of stabling that up a little quicker than it appeared it was going to fly. Nico pretty out of position here. But works one way up the gap.
Yeah, hole 3 is definitely going to play as one of the more rewarding birdies. Gavin going back to that same disc, different angle this time, all hyzer and barely inside. Definitely had the steam on it.
Oh, wind playing with that one really early in the flight.
Conrad feels like it's wide and definitely knows it. Gets held up on that right side, but we've seen him make some pretty crazy putts in his times. James is one of those players that if he's inside 150, he just can't help himself but give it a soft bid, I feel like. And obviously we know well that that range extends beyond 150.
What is that, 252 to be exact?
Yeah, something like that. And the forehand out of James,
No
but
way.
does not work out. Usually he makes good when he does bust it out, but just a lack of focus on that one. Maybe overreading the wind a bit. Yeah, a little bit of a rocky start for the entire card.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be 2 more bogeys than James had on his entire round yesterday. He went bogey free.
Nico even through 3. No one's really got the fire going so far. And we saw no players in that top 10, 3 down through 3.
Pretty unpredictable track here, Connor.
Katrina Allen! Maria Oliva! She's done it! Kristen Tatar!
Side, Ananda. Stacy Diaz.
Champion Oakland and Austin!
Paige Pierce.
Hole 4 brings us back into the woods that are really the core of this course. This is going to be our first really forehand friendly shot on the track. It also does suit for that backhand that just touches to the right ever so slightly, about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through its flight, but that's a very technical line to hit. I think the flat forehand that gets a little bit of skip late is going to be the easiest way to attack this one. Like we said, we saw Babcock card the ace here day 1. Let's see if he can work some more magic. Also excited to watch James shape this line. James squared. I feel like I don't necessarily recall Proctor lining up the way he has in that pre-shot routine, really just squaring himself dead straight at the target and then kind of getting into his shoulder turn as he starts to walk. Is that something you've always noticed out of him?
I haven't actually noticed him doing that before. I'll have to pay attention on these next few shots.
It just
Talking
feels-
about just like his pre-shot
Yeah, it
routine,
just
where he's
feels a little-
squaring his shoulders up.
Yeah, it feels a little more methodical and different than in the past, but maybe I'm just not noticing it for the first time.
Gavin just pushing that forehand a little too straight there. And And James, this is such a high-level shot to attempt. This is an envy here.
Yeah, he was looking for just a little more hyzer there, but that inside
Wow.
miss, if you would call it that, ends up being a great shot. James going to go birdie, bogey, bogey, birdie, likely to start his round at even through 4.
Nice little touch forehand approach there from Gavin. Clean up his miss.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, Nico just a little flat, hasn't quite connected yet.
Sails that one over the top.
That wind definitely having an effect even in here in the woods.
We're way up in these woods, and it's a dense forest too. I'm surprised that the wind is actually playing a factor here.
Yeah, I don't think there was a hole today where it didn't at least creep into your thoughts at some point. James buries that one in. Nico places it in. And Gavin with the drop-in par. James picks up a stroke on the card.
Right, hole 5, kind of setting the tone here for these bomb and scramble par 4s. And earlier on the FPO coverage, Connor, I was talking to Ella about, maybe coming up with a new term for bomb and scramble so that we don't overuse it. And what do you think about rip it and reassess?
I like it. I'm a big alliteration fan, so anytime you can sneak some in, I'm in.
You really are trying to fly something up right where the drone was headed, and honestly, guys, look at the wall of trees here. If this isn't a rip it and reassess hole, I don't know what is, because you just want to get distance off the tee, and you really can't pick and choose exactly where you're going to land in this fairway. Forehand plays here. Obviously, James is going to show us a different route. He's going relay here, kind of a flippy fairway.
Okay, he rarely busts that disc out, but we get here in the thick woods and new shapes show themselves. And yeah, I think like you said, there's a lot of spots where it doesn't feel repeatable, but if you do push it dead straight, there is a particular lane on the left side that it feels like you can get into and repeat, but that right side that the drone flew is just not really a spot that players are going for unless they're out of position and then just trying to get somewhere over there for the par.
James Proctor went dynasty there and just needed it to break over a bit more. He was asking for it to not kick left. It did, and it actually found the OB road over there on that left side.
Yeah, I don't know what speed the dynasty is, but I feel like anything more than like a 7 speed on this just feels a bit dangerous.
Yeah, it's a 9 speed from Infinite Discs.
Yeah, I feel like mid-range or hard, slow fairway is about as long as you want to go to keep that road out of play. But like Nate said, if you're trying to rip and reassess, you got to do the rip part first, and James was trying to. I need to start using last names. Having the double James it's going to get a little confusing, so Dr. Proctor and Mr. Conrad. I couldn't tell if that stayed in for Proctor.
Wow, James is the master at that. Just kind of little tossing, gets his body out of the way, and ensures that he doesn't follow through into the tree.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I'm still mind blown most of the time when he has just the ability to take a powerful swing and somehow just change his swing up, not have to just throw one rigid way all the time. Just shows how much feel he has for the game. Proctor with the rare forehand doesn't use it very often, but he has a serviceable one when he needs it.
James from 38. There we go. Back to under par, Connor.
Signature step through Anheuser putt, a little bit of wobble just for extra flair and chain grippiness. James, one of the few players on tour who prefers a little bit of Anheuser out of the hand on most of his putts.
Yeah, definitely likes to draw them in from left to right with the nose down.
Gavin's made a couple testers here early. Finds himself back at even.
Nico, 5 pars in a row to start his Saturday.
Proctor, after that out of bounds, ends up taking bogey. Hole 5 is definitely not the easiest hole on the track, and hole 6 is going to be one where the big key is really just to hit your shape here. It's hard to really repeat which gap you fly through if you want to get to circle 1 on this one. There is that mandatory there to keep in mind. Just gets in your head a little bit. There's not really any routes over there I think the players would necessarily want to take to get here. Rarely will you see a disc fly through this gap that we're flying here. Most of the time there's an inside gap to the right. You can see to the right of that cluster of bushes that draws you into the basket, or more often than not, the speed you want to commit to on this shot will bring you to the right side, long side of this green.
You know, from the perspective of a fan or just a spectator here, Conrad, it looks like it's hard to choose the late gap. Is that true from the player's perspective as well?
I feel like most players, there's this one tree that you're kind of aiming at, this leaning one that you guys can see with the sunlight on the right side of it out there. You're trying to kind of fly inside of that, but sometimes even if you do, if you don't have the nose up enough, you still find yourself in that long gap. So without getting the nose up and using some height on the disc, it's really hard to actually draw yourself through the middle to the park job.
Nico classically leaning on the flex there to kind of open that gap up a bit, and it kind of slowed his disc down. He's just outside the circle there.
James gets some height on this. Oh, just catches the tree I was talking about. We saw Nico find barely the inside of that one.
It was a mana from Proctor.
Oh, Gavin hangs on to that a bit, but finds enough airspace.
Yeah, a little love there.
James has to go hyzer putt around the big tree trunk. Not quite able to make it happen. Conrad with a hedge in the way.
Oh, back to back. Circle 2 putts for James, man.
Yeah, what a great putt. That's one of those putts that really makes you, once again, like I said, his feel for the game. He doesn't have to play it the same way. He's willing to adjust and make moves on the fly. That's part of what makes James one of the best in the world.
Nico trying to keep those emotions quelled.
I can tell Gavin's been getting the reps up on the putt this week. Looking crisp.
That man grinds.
Yeah, he does. But he's also, I feel like, been making a lot of changes to his swing, and, you know, with those changes, you got to get the repetition so that the muscle memory is just hammered in. Like you said, Nico doing a good job trying to keep it even and just keep fighting the battle.
Right, Ricky Wysocki 4 through 6. Isaac Robinson 5 through 6, and a handful of evens in this top 10. Front 9 definitely. Honestly, there's no gimmies on this course. I would say there's nothing that you are guaranteed out here at Shelton. Here we're moving into the 7th, 400-foot par 3. This gap is, maybe 50 feet off the tee here. It kind of forces you into a baby flex shot, and as we head out into the open here, the wind was kind of ripping from right to left, and pushing the shots toward that out of bounds. So you almost have to commit to the width and really lean on the stability of your disc here to swing you back toward the pin.
Yeah, I felt like this hole more than any today, you could really feel the different wind conditions. Oh, it's really kind of crazy to me. I see the hole played the exact same to par as it did yesterday when the wind is significantly different.
No, that's a shock.
I had to double check like 4 times. I was like, is it loading right?
Oh, and Gavin just completely misses the gap right there. It gets a little lucky and pushes out into the Scotch broom.
This is a classic Nico line here. I feel like this is a hole he definitely has built his game off of, and he shows it.
Really is a classic Nico Anheuser there. It's actually, James is throwing a Clash Discs cookie.
I'm going to play more of a straight shot. Looks like a nice stable finish though. Oh,
I just got a nice box from Clash Discs, Connor, featuring the Nate Perkins Lotus.
ooh.
Pretty stoked to test it out this week in Portland.
Maybe me and you will have to do a little Lotus and River battle.
Let's do it. New Glendevere layout. Really stoked to go and see that new course that they have. I'm glad that we're going to be spending our whole week at such a beautiful property.
That place is definitely gorgeous, and they've created a high-level track out there for sure. And we get 2 of them this year. James putting with strong tailwind.
Well, we thought we lost him there for a minute when he went back-to-back bogeys, but he's now got 4 in a row, Connor, and Conrad is back.
Yeah, he is cruising, and he is willing himself in it with his incredible putting.
And Nico gets his first birdie of the round here on the 7th.
Hole 8 going to be, once again, the easiest hole on the course today. Really just lets you attack with a big drive, and the way it shapes, it almost forces you to throw kind of a skinny flex, not max distance, but a distance line. We saw some players try rollers here, but really just looking to beat this mandatory and get anywhere into this wooded gap. I think as long as you're at the gap or in it, you feel like you should get up and down for birdie every single time here. Strong left to right wind could have some effect on the disc, so let's see how they adjust their angles in selection from yesterday.
James going panic here. Loves to crack this one over full speed on a little bit of Annie.
Yeah, no wind. You might see him go with that photon here, but I'm just not really trying to mess with it.
Makes the window all air. Look at this, Connor. What is he, 80 feet out?
100 footer for James.
Whoa.
That was a full shot there.
And that left to right just kind of helped that one swing over.
Nico going with the long roller, it appears.
Oh, I liked it. It just got a weird bounce.
Yeah, I feel like it just carried a little bit too much in that crosswind before he got to the ground and just didn't get down and maybe as quick as he intended. I haven't seen a forehand on this hole. I'm really surprised as to the shot selection there out of Mr. Babcock.
It could be because of the severity of his miss on the previous hole. Do you think that comes into play at all?
I don't know. Maybe
you
he
just kind of shank on the previous one and you're just like, I just want to hit this gap.
It could, but that one's so wide open. I don't know. Maybe he just been feeling the forehand this week and hey, he still might be able to scrap himself a birdie. So
He does hammer the forehand on Heiser.
yeah, he throws one finger forehand. So
No way.
it always impresses me when players are able to get good distance off of that.
That's wild. Him and Marweed are wild for that.
Yeah.
That's just half the surface area.
Yeah, the math doesn't add up, but those guys are big and strong, so it
That
works
tendon must be so strong.
out. The strongest. I believe I saw Linus going to a one-finger forehand last weekend as well, so a lot of players messing with it in certain situations.
I didn't even know Linus attempted a forehand.
This year he does. Wow.
One finger forehand birdies.
This is one of those courses, regardless how good you throw, you're going to have a couple putts where you're forced to straddle, like Nico is here. Takes his time and makes good there. I want to say he's putting with the Jackrabbit from Lone Star Discs. I really always loved how much of a forward lean that Proctor gets into his putt. I feel like that's where a lot of his good pace comes out of, just his body positioning. Making sure not to be too relaxed, too straight up on it, and using that forward lean to create momentum.
That's 5 in a row for Conrad. Here we are, a hole 9. It's just 315 feet, but probably the tightest gap here on the front 9. And the difficulty is that the smallest part of the gap is in the latest part of the flight here. Most people are trying to throw this dead straight gap. Connor, did you see people trying to do anything sneaky over there on the left side? Maybe a stall forehand or anything like that?
I saw Gannon Bird taking that left side forehand, but he's the only player that I've seen attempting that so far.
Oh, and this is a good look at the fairway here. That is exactly what you're trying to feed your disc through, and this is super high level stuff. And Conrad busting out the yellow and blue in V. Trying to release this on a little bit of hyzer and see it flip up and
Wow.
drift, and that
Oh, and he jumps over the log.
jumps the log. Are you kidding?
Bye-bye barrier.
Some of those logs are placed there with intention of leaving players with a circle's edge putt. I know there's one on 11 that just catches so many shots.
Yeah, there's the one on 11. 12 actually has one right after. That's kind of a similar distance to this, and those things are no mistake, you guys. They're definitely part of the
Look at
course
this.
design.
Oh, that's buckets.
Babcock almost rings up another one for
Um,
us.
I'm guessing that's Origin, just by the way that flew. Probably Midnight Pro.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest kind of difference of selection you'll see here is like there's some players playing the putter shot, and there's a lot of players playing kind of the softer mid-range stand-up. It's right in that in-between range for sure.
And Proctor going Pathfinder there, and that's just a good look at why this is so hard. I mean, James, great disc choice, great speed out of the hand, good angle, but just fractions of a degree off on the trajectory
Maybe
of the line.
Yeah, timing out of his hand was, who knows, like
Yeah.
0.09 seconds off, and
And the hole's over.
Yeah.
You're not going to score. You got to work to get up and down. So just shows you exactly why a wooded course like this plays so difficult.
Man, Conrad is really not here to slow down today. He is pedal to the metal even after a rocky start.
Yeah, he's going to finish with 6 birdies in a row. He's just got 4 pars on the tournament, Connor.
The bounce is back in the step, you guys. Watch out.
Yeah, it really is. He shoots 5 down still in the front with 2 bogeys. Literally the best you can do with 2 bogeys. So It is. It's really special to see James playing well this season. And he has a 5-stroke lead. We are halfway through the tournament. Vaina Makala 7 down on the front. And him and Isaac Robinson, Ricky Wysocki trying to chase him down. Thank you guys so much for tuning into Central Coast Disc Golf. Connor, where can they find you on Instagram?
You can find me at Connor O'Reilly 99648. Also head over to my YouTube channel. We're bringing practice rounds every week, and who knows, next week it sounds like me and Nate might need to get at it.
Yeah, let's invite James Conrad onto the channel, man. And thanks again for joining us. We'll see you soon for part 2 from the Cascade Challenge.